I'm Jason Klamm, and this is the Comedy on Vinyl podcast. The year is 1967. The album is Takeoffs and Put-Ons. The artist is George Carlin. And yet at the same time, some of those things are true and some of them are not. I'll explain in a moment. My guest is Sandy Danto. Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
So, last time we talked about Sam Kinison. You challenged me by playing Sam Kinison, by making me listen to Sam Kinison for the first time.
I forgot that you had never, yeah.
I only knew of him. You know, I just knew of Captain Screamy Pants.
It's a wild first listen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then I had a couple weeks ago, had somebody else also pick Sam Kinison, and she was the reverse, where she's like, I listened to it a lot as a kid, and I don't like it anymore. And I was like, so it was an interesting shift.
I've maybe turned the corner on it. I think I listened to it recently, and I was just like, maybe this didn't age as well as I thought. But, I will say this, stylistically and, just structurally, the way he did comedy is unlike anyone before.
Absolutely.
And anyone ever since.
Oh, I won't deny that. That at all.
And it's completely unique, and no one's even attempted. When I first got to the Comedy Store, I saw some people that were trying to do that style.
Really?
And, actually, there are a few that like can pull it off, but it's like very obvious that it's Sam.
Yeah.
But when I first got there in 2006 to the Comedy Store, he was still prevalently influencing a lot of people there.
That makes sense.
Since its recent uptick in popularity, he's sort of been put back into the storage space.
So let's explain what happened very quickly. There's a miscommunication that I'm going to say neither of us is to blame for. You wanted to listen to a Kind of Like It When a Lot of People Die, which is I think the most recent unearthed.
It was
Carlin
originally
album.
from 2001.
It was that one. Yes. Okay,
yes.
That's right. But they finally released it a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I did is I re-listened to Takeoffs and Put-Ons for like the 1000th fucking time. But it's fun because we're going to be talking about two different ends of Carlin, and you're going to be talking about that end of Carlin that I don't particularly necessarily care for. I don't hate Carlin. I love Carlin, but I love hippy dippy George Carlin a ton. Of course. And like fucking black turtleneck Carlin, is that more your guy?
I'll say this. I think that guy is more interesting, but less funny.
Okay. All right. I said turtleneck, by the way. I just mean black shirt. Somebody's going to give me shit for saying the wrong shirt type. Okay. All right. That's interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do.
He's definitely at the top of his game philosophically and as a humorist, but it just kind of whereas he used to kind of feed you some one-liners to make the medicine of whatever else he was saying go down.
Yeah,
there's a little less of that. While it still has funny moments and punchlines, it's just a little less than. And last night I got bumped by Dave Chappelle, and I've noticed, and I watched his new specials that are being either loved or think pieced about, and he sort of is in the same territory where he doesn't mind just going off on a philosophical, very thoughtful tangent, something that he obviously thinks a lot about, without paying any attention to structurally adding a punchline. But then after some long-winded talking point, I guess, he will have something very fun. And it's almost like how Norm Macdonald will go on, like he'll have a really long-winded joke where like part of the humor is like, you're 4 minutes into the joke setup and nothing funny has happened, and that's funny on its own. You're like, all right, I'm still listening here. This is ridiculous and mundane. And then 5 minutes later, after more of that, there's some ridiculously hilarious punchline.
Yeah.
But his is more abstract, and these are more set in reality.
Right.
Or just their angle on any given subject that's controversial.
I can see that. And what's interesting too is you've got a big difference with Chappelle now, or Carlin at the time that this was recorded even, is no matter what, that person's a personality. So what you say is all of a sudden something new entirely. It's not a comic working their way up anymore. You're a personality.
Right. And but something I've noticed that's a similarity between somebody who's working their way up and whether it's Dave Chappelle or George Carlin specifically, is that they not only will, but prefer to talk about stuff that you're not supposed to talk about, which is something I've noticed that open mic or people working their way up, comics love to do, but only the masters can really pull off.
I see what you're saying. The difference too is like, I mean, maybe you would know. I mean, when you were working your way up right at the beginning, did it feel, is there a I've got nothing to lose? Because when you're rich as fuck, you really don't. I mean, you have a lot to lose, but you've got it banked. So if you quit, you're going to be fine. Is there freedom in? I
think when you're at the beginning, yeah, but really, when you're at the beginning, you're really just doing an impression of those guys that you admire for doing that.
Sure.
And when you're those guys, you're doing it as, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. How can I challenge myself? How can I make a very unpopular opinion? How can I win people over by talking about something that's very unpopular?
Yeah.
To say.
Yeah, and I honestly, I'm a person who, like, unless that's done artfully, I can't handle it. But if it is done artfully, even if I disagree with them and I know they're trying to fuck with me, I still respect it. I can respect that.
Me too.
So let's
hashtag me too, no pun intended, to what is so controversial about Chappelle's special.
Right. So if we go to Carlin, early Carlin. So here's the stuff that's on here. Him talking about radio, him talking about TV. That's just about it. Him just doing commercials and this and that, and wonderful wino, that kind of stuff. That's literally the whole album.
Right.
45 minutes of Carlin. And I fucking love it because it's delightful and some of the jokes are really, really solid.
What I don't understand is why comedy albums... Well, I understand why at a certain point it was just the comics hour. But why now... with Netflix and podcasts and YouTube, do comics just put out basically like, who the fuck, do you mind if I swear?
No, please, go ahead.
Is it going to upset your sponsors?
Yeah.
Who the fuck is buying comedy albums? Maybe on iTunes. I guess sometimes, I have Apple Music or Spotify and somewhere on there. But why do you need several different mediums of the same content? Why aren't comedians putting out albums like that where it's at least breaking form?
Right. So you mean as opposed to putting out a special and an album at the same time, or
why put out a special and an album at the same time of the exact
same material?
Why do I want to just listen to? I guess if you're on a road trip and podcasts are popular, but wouldn't you want to maybe put snippets of the stuff that you have visually to draw people to want to watch?
Sure.
And I have a problem with specials in general just because I think stand-up specifically is a live medium. So if you're going to put out a special, it should be something special. Not just you doing an hour of your material that you worked on. I think that's important. But I think that not... All I'm saying is... there's room for so much more innovation.
Do you have... You don't have to say it. Do you have plans in your head for what?
Yes,
you do.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Lots of different ones.
I mean, I know you've already fucking done some insane shit anyway.
Right. But I just don't understand why, especially in this age where there's so many avenues for content, so much content, so much of the same content, why we can't just... without trying too hard to make it weird or different, but like... There's just so much. I think because, people with the money are scared to do something risky. But
yeah, I mean, because all the specials kind of look the same.
All it takes is one. And Chelsea Peretti's was really different and cool. And there have been a few others. I think Harlan Williams did one in the desert, or Doug Stanhope.
That's great.
Maria Bamford. They all did weird ones, and no one's really taking the cue on that.
Right, and they didn't do anything that was like you said, they weren't trying too hard.
Right.
It was of them. It seemed like that, and honestly, I mean, that's one of the things I love about comedy albums is at the very least, like at least with the art, or at least with some kind of presentation, or playing with the idea that you're listening to a record. There's a lot of room to play.
Right, and that's what I love about George Carlin's early records is that it's commercial parodies and radio parodies and what have you. And just to tie it in back to the miscommunication we had on which we were listening to, since we listened to different stuff, the one that I listened to, I Like It When a Lot of People Die, or I Kind of Like It When a Lot of People Die. It starts with a rant that I'm not sure whether or not he's on stage. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Then it goes into a set of his, which is like 6 or 7 tracks, and then there's interviews.
Interesting.
So why, just that dynamic would be great for anyone's comedy album.
I agree.
If you have a podcast, why not include, or you've done somebody else's podcast, so maybe the people that listen to yours don't listen to the other person's. All I'm saying is, comedy albums have room for improvement.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree. I love that. I love that we're talking about how to improve the comedy album or the special or whatever the fuck. That's cool. We don't get to talk about this that often.
I don't think it gets talked about enough.
No, absolutely not.
There have been so many great innovations in comedy and media in general.
Mm-hmm. I love like some of the stuff we've talked about that people don't pick often enough is like Albert Brooks or Lily Tomlin. They fucked with the sketch comedy album like nobody's done.
Right,
ever.
and Adam Sandler did too.
Sure, yeah. He was super fun. I mean, I almost have banned talking about him on the podcast because we talked about him so many times.
I'm sure.
I'm still open. If somebody's got a new angle on Sandler, let's do it.
You know who else did a really good one? And I don't know if it came out on vinyl, but Eddie Pepitone did a really good one.
Which one was it? Because I have one of his on vinyl for sure. A few of his have.
It's not his. It's from a while ago.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
He's like yelling at his father, which I mean could maybe be just about anything he does.
Of course.
I don't know. I can't remember. I have it on CD somewhere, and I remember listening to it before I had a car that had Bluetooth connectivity. But it's really funny. I wish I remembered the name of it.
What is some stuff on the Carlin album that you picked? Why did you pick it in the first place?
I picked it because it's really interesting that it was supposed to come out in 2001, well before he died. He died in 2008?
Yeah.
And it was released 8 years after he died in 2016. And it's amazing how comedy specifically, but any sort of art can both be dated and before its time. But I think most interestingly, comedy can be, especially just people's takes on things have the ability to be both dated in the way they talk about it, but also specifically this album, he's talking about Osama bin Laden before 9/11, like right before 9/11.
That's fucked up. Okay.
Like
right,
July 2001.
Holy shit.
Yeah. About farts being talking about farts in coach from on flights coming from third world countries being terrorist attacks.
Oh my God.
And Osama bin Laden getting blamed for that.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that's the bit that maybe kept this from coming out.
Really? God, that's so weird. I mean, it makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But wow. But a whole album's worth of shit.
Right. But but at the same time, he has very out of date language and takes on gender and sexuality and race that make it seem dated. But at the same time, there's the title bit, I Kind of Like It When a Lot of People Die, goes from just talking about catastrophes and what he loves about them into this stream of consciousness rant that borders on being a Rick and Morty episode. And then comes back around to the beginning. It's crazy, but it talks about it's before its time in that like very sage-like predictions of how we treat modern catastrophes and natural disasters.
Yeah. He just finds this fucking way around that I respect and also just can't listen to mostly, which is like, I'm going to play the worst asshole. I have some strong opinions for sure, but I'm channeling both these things at once, and I'm going to play this guy who legitimately wants a lot of people to die. Here's my thesis. Play along with me. Let's see how far we can go with this. Right. And then we all know, anybody who's ever heard the man interviewed knows he's was the loveliest man on the planet.
Of course.
You know, I mean, you couldn't do that on... Well, I don't say you couldn't. But for the most part, if you're going to do that and play it reliably, that's coming from your gut. It's coming from your bile that you would set aside because you're a person.
Of course, but I think there's something about, especially when you're a lovable person with strong opinions, that you see that as a challenge to, let's see how likable I really am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see how far I can take this likability. And that's definitely something I relate to. The reason I moved to LA is because I was tripping on mushrooms in college, thinking to myself, couldn't find a major, was pressured to want to do business or pre-law or whatever.
Okay.
Journalism, something, where I could make a good living and security and all that. And I was like, what am I the best at that I can enjoy doing 30, 40 years from now? And I was just like, well, I've never had a hard time making friends. That's probably the thing that comes easiest to me. And being funny. So entertainment, something in there, probably comedy, but maybe if that doesn't work, something in and around it.
A juggler.
Yeah, exactly. Not well coordinated enough, but maybe if I put my mind to it.
Sure.
And I think once you put your mind to that or set your sight on it, and it goes well, you just get bored getting by on it. So you have to challenge yourself to see just how likable you really are. And George Carlin definitely does that.
Yeah. So that's got to come from like this. You must have at some point had an overwhelming feeling that was happening to you. Was it from audience reaction or friends' reactions? Like what set you off and made you start going down your own path of how likable do I need to be on stage?
Well, I don't think I've turned the corner on that.
You haven't?
Because,
okay.
Well, I do have some hot takes, if you will, but I mostly bring them around to, like, I have a bit where I use the word fag, but basically using logic, I explain, like, the only reason that word's offensive, or any word for that matter, is because we haven't come up with a good enough slur for white straight guys. And if there was that word, then none of these words would be offensive. That's the only reason all these other words are offensive, because of white privilege. And
that's brilliant.
At first, when people hear it, there is like depending where you are in the country, people are not happy about hearing that word. Of
course, yeah.
But, and that's really my first foray. And maybe I've got a few others, but I'm not quite secure enough, like George Carlin, to just be able to say, I love it when a lot of people die.
Right.
And then am able to make that super funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that is like having all the money in the bank, all the chips, and like, here you are. Let's see what happens now.
Right.
Fuck. Like that's
right. It's kind of like, yeah. You know what? I imagine it's like some super rich hedge fund investor who's got all the money, like a George Soros, being like, you know what? I want to see what would happen if Rwanda was the richest country in the world for a day, and just flood their economy with whatever, I imagine it's the 1%er version of comedy.
That's brilliant. Oh my God. Is there anything on this album that, okay, so we talked about, it dates itself a little bit. It also has some stuff that, like you said, is incredibly prescient. There anything on here that you listen to that seems like groundbreaking at all for Carlin, or no, in your experience?
Well, another thing that I've noticed Chappelle and Carlin are able to do is just take poop and fart jokes to a level where you're just like, oh, these are, and don't get me wrong, I love poop and fart jokes, but there's a certain level of awareness you have as an adult, and forget being a comic, where you're just like, all right, well, I know this isn't really what I'm supposed to be laughing at, or I know that this is cheap and easy, but where they make, just like South Park, where they make toilet humor smart and funny, so there's some of that. The cutting edge stuff was really,
I mean, you did already talk. I mean, here's the thing. Talking about a bunch of people dying and turning that into something else is a challenge and is probably pretty cutting edge.
Right.
I just wasn't sure if there's anything that
well,
breaks
just
the
knowing,
mold.
I guess Osama bin Laden, really got his start with the World Trade Center bombing of 93, which I used to do. This was actually my first joke where I was trying to be edgy. Where I was like, but it's too esoteric. Where I was like, do you think after watching Ace Ventura and then failing to blow up the World Trade Center in 1993, Osama was like, laces out. And it's like, you have to be born within like 5 years of me to really appreciate that joke.
Yeah, I get that. You got know your audience, I guess.
Right. And it was I don't remember the exact word. It worked a little bit better, but it's like he's just like in a cave somewhere, like laces out. Like he saw that the bombing only killed like one person.
Right.
And injured a dignitary.
I don't know. Okay, so forgive me, and same to the audience, forgive me if I've asked you this already, but like, because last time we talked was a while ago, and I don't want to retread how you got into comedy way too much, but
I'm afraid I've repeated stuff, and I hope I didn't. I don't like going to every podcast with like, this is my podcast ready stuff, but maybe I did. I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. But what's the difference between Sandy at the beginning and Sandy now? Is there like a discernible, can you like demarcate, oh, I was this kind of comic, or I did this kind of shit?
Well, much like Pryor, and not to equate myself to Pryor and Carlin, where they had like this very presentable version of themselves, and then sort of tuned in, turned on, and dropped out, and sort of then had their awakening. I did the opposite. I started out, I had really long hair. I was like a party sort of weed. I was like a character. I was like, not that it wasn't me, but I just played up a heightened version of this Belushi-esque stoner party guy. And then I had a rough patch in my life, and I quit smoking weed, and I quit partying like that. Still once in a while, because it's
sure.
Can't teach an old dog completely new tricks. But I started talking about stuff that was darker and more had more weight to it, I guess. Without being a shock comic. That's not what I was, but just being more myself and more mature on stage, while still, relying on some of my old jokes. But, now I'm more real, more autobiographical. Whereas before it was autobiographical, but more in a cartoony, this relies on my look and personality. Whereas now I'm more focused on the jokes. Which, and I'd like to... you have when you do comedy, everybody has different skill sets, and I have different skill sets that I have yet to incorporate all of them into just my stand-up.
Okay.
I do characters, I do voices and impressions, I do physical comedy, but I haven't fully incorporated all those aspects into my act on stage as a stand-up.
And is that for sure what you want to do with it?
I just don't see how you don't put it all together at some point. If that's your bag of tricks, why wouldn't you just use them all?
Yeah. Which is interesting because again, it's a little more reverse Carlin, because Carlin was definitely voices like that's
Right.
all this is. This
Right.
the like takeoffs and put-ons is just voices, and great, brilliant. I think he taught people how to do the DJ voice. I think he taught people how to
Right.
do certain things. So it's interesting to go the reverse and like, no, I've got more shit I want to do on stage, like actually want to do, not just what I have something to say, but I have shit that I want to do on stage while I'm saying it.
Right.
It's interesting.
Well, I just think that it's a lot easier to say heavier stuff, racier stuff, and edgier stuff when you gussy it up with like a goofy voice or a funny act out. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a good filter to have, and I'm going to say this as a person, and we definitely talked about this last time. I'm super sensitive. Like, I'm super sensitive about it. I'm fine with political correctness. Here's the thing. Like, I know that you're a sensitive comic. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But you are going to have, I think, I would guess, you're going to be more willing to watch something I wouldn't, because you're like, I'm here for the art of it. Like, a smart person goes to a museum, looks at all the shit equally. You might go to a stand-up club and everything's like, you can give it more of a chance than I would, because I get triggered, whatever the hell, like, so.
Yeah, I don't get triggered necessarily, but I think I've been so conditioned to know what triggers other people that I'll listen to something, and as soon as I hear something that I think will trigger somebody else, I start seeing it through the lens of somebody who would be upset by it. Like, I was watching Chappelle last night, and he was talking about the Me Too stuff, and he was talking about like something with a porn star. I don't remember exactly what, and I just found myself gravitating my eyes more towards women in the audience just to see how they're reacting.
Sure.
And I think that's almost as interesting now at comedy clubs, and it's hard for me to not, and maybe that's just from my perspective as a comic, but it's hard to not see how people are reacting to certain content. And that kind of sucks. You know what? There's the argument that the national discourse has changed and certain words and points of view are out of date, and I couldn't agree with that more. You watch certain comedies from the 80s and 90s and you're just like, whoa, all these gags are sexual assault, or all these gags are homophobic. Even you watch Friends and there's so much homophobia and just stupid white people stuff. And like in Kimmy Schmidt, they nail it by calling it like 8 white complainers or whatever.
Yeah,
so
right.
funny. But at the same time, and that does cause for innovation, because you're not relying on old joke tropes and the word faggot as a punchline. Like, I remember when I first started out, and I apologize if that triggers you.
No.
But, people could just go up there and say a word like that and it be a punchline. And it's super easy. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that still works in certain places.
I'm sure it does.
But, that does cause people to have to go back to the drawing board, try a little. But at the same time, I think that people get lost in context, and they're looking to. I think there's an endorphin rush when people get offended, and so people look to get offended. And I think that people take. Oh, he was talking about transgender people. And he's like, my New Year's resolution was stop doing tranny jokes in 2018, which is really funny to me, because he's gotten in trouble for that or whatever.
Yeah.
But then he's continued to talk about it. And I was just like looking around to see the type of person. And it's weird because the anti-prejudice causes prejudice at the same time, because you look for the people you think are going to be offended by that. And you're just like, well, it's like two mirrors facing each other,
Yeah.
But you do find those people that you're like, oh, I figured you'd be offended by that, and they are, and they're not laughing, and they're just kind of like looking at their phone during that, and they're like kind of visually having like a visceral reaction. But at the same time, it's like, take it into context and wait to see what he has to say.
Sure.
Don't just listen to the one word he said about it.
Sure.
And it'd be like a hot button topic, and you shut down. And also, even if it does offend you, don't shut down and just be triggered. You know, that's, I think, the biggest problem we have today in the country is that instead of having a conversation, people are outraged and then it just becomes a yelling match. Or people get offended and they don't even try to yell back. They just go to their echo chambers. And that's on every issue, I think, happening a lot. And it both hurts and helps comedy because any attention is good attention when it comes to comedy.
Sure. Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, the First Amendment thing, which I think is abused by a lot of people, like using it as an excuse to be racist or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, there are lines in comedy, but rarely are they crossed. Like, I was at an open mic in New York years ago, and this guy, his every punchline was the N-word.
Wow.
Just no context, no point of view, just up there thinking that the shock humor would be funny. And the next comic went up there and basically like yelled and cried because he was so upset by it. And then the guy got in a fist fight with the MC, and the guy broke a bottle over the guy's head. So clearly this person is not a good person. So these are the people hiding behind the First Amendment that are making the argument of it getting suppressed.
Yeah.
But they're abusing that argument for when people who are masters of their craft, like Dave Chappelle or whoever else's Chris Rock or whoever else's specials have been controversial in quotation marks. It's like, I think people really take what they're saying out of context. And also, there's a plausible deniability of their jokes. Don't take it that seriously.
Right.
I mean, I think every comic on some level wants to feel like what they're saying is important.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the only thing that's important is the punchline.
I can see that. What's funny is I straight up got us down this path and realized that I had a separate point to make, but it still wraps in perfectly. Which is the idea of having a character is a perfect filter for that, if only because it dumbs it down. It will, or not dumbs it down. It will numb the sting of something that might trigger you, or you might just fucking hate hearing. Like, because let's say if you did a character who, hi, I'm a racist asshole, you can say all the shit you want and make all the points you want about racism. Whereas if it just comes out of your face and your voice.
But you can, if you do it artfully and satirically, like I've definitely seen people do that just to be able to say the N-word. And because they think that word is funny on shock value.
For sure. Yeah.
You know, they're like, what? It's not me saying it, it's a character saying it.
Yeah.
Like, you have to find a legitimately satirical way to do that.
Absolutely.
But even if you do, people will still just find it offensive.
Sure. No, and that does happen. Don't get me wrong. That does happen. I do wonder what... We could talk all day about whether or not I think Dave Chappelle is doing it the right way or not. But, and I respect him as a comedian, absolutely. I just don't know. I can't tell where the satire is when he does it.
Yeah, I get that. I think he's coming from, and you know, I've pontificated enough, but you know, I think he's coming from a place where he feels like a victim, both because he's black and because he went through whatever he did with Chappelle's show at the end there.
Sure.
You know, you watched his special?
I did not. I avoided it.
Okay.
I wanted to see it, and then
I have a different threshold, but I really didn't think it was what he was saying was all that offensive. You know, I think it's hard to speak to what other people experience and saying that someone who's been sexually assaulted is a brittle spirit. You know, I could see people maybe being upset by that, but you know, the way he does it, you know, it's meant to be taken a little bit more lighthearted. And I think the timing of it, you know,
for sure,
could be what is causing all the backlash.
Right, right.
But at the same time, what are we all supposed to agree on one point of view?
Sure. No, absolutely. Right.
You know?
And again, I think that's kind of the point of having that wall of art there. You get to pick and choose what you like, what you don't.
Right.
I am all for, though, giving it more of a chance than people do. I do try and hear shit out, even if I don't like it or I don't want to hear it. I don't think it was artful. I want to discover that by the end. I'd like to get to the end of the sentence first.
Of course.
You know?
But he does a thing in the second. His special, I like that he did like a very stripped down special at the Comedy Store.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
That's something that I've always... I want to do one where it's like me and 7 people at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
Because that's really my wheelhouse, and that's really where I'm at my best.
Yeah.
You know?
Like nobody showed up. You got these 7 people.
A bunch of people were there.
Okay.
And they all left because they were watching
Brilliant.
hours of comedy.
Brilliant.
And I have to win them over.
I love that.
Which is my version of like saying controversial stuff and still being likable. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, you've seen 3 hours of comedy and are thinking about paying your meter or like what time you're going to get to sleep to get 8 hours for tomorrow morning or like what food you're going to get after this. Well, I'm going to make you want to still watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he does like his version of that in the belly room of the Comedy Store. And he does this story about this prostitute from a book from a famous pimp from like the 40s or 50s.
Okay.
And basically it was a metaphor for how he was treated during the demise of the Chappelle Show.
Okay. Yeah.
Him being the prostitute. Mm. But I think that the next evolution in his career maybe is to get over feeling like the victim because he's sort of made a comeback at this point.
And he's a bajillionaire.
Yeah.
He's doing okay.
Like it's hard to... my problem with all of it is that his point of view is that he's still coming from... He's playing both sides. Mm-hmm. He plays... like he talks about Trump stuff where he's like, it's okay, baby, I'm rich. Mm-hmm. I like the tax cuts. It helps me, but I feel for the other side.
Yeah.
So he's playing like both that and the victim of like all these other times in his life that he's oppressed.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I think the evolution is like just not playing the victim card from the Chappelle Show thing anymore. For
sure. And I mean, there are definitely people who, to go back to Pryor specifically, that's a dude who was richer than God and didn't come across in his comedy.
Right.
He could even talk about how much money he had, but he did it in such a way you're still like, oh, this dude's my friend.
Well, yeah, because he grew up under such unfair circumstances, such abusive circumstances, where, you know, no matter how much money you make, you still carry that with you. Mm-hmm. And to go back to the Carlin album that I listened to, one of the things that it's analogous to what we're talking about is that he has a thing about the cops and how he, which is relevant today, and he's doing it in 2001. He's like, I don't trust the cops. They're not on our side. Mm-hmm. They're the bad guys. They're not for good. They're for the state. They're for the government. You know, that's who's paying them. Why would you rat anyone out? They shouldn't call them tipsters. They should all just be rats and squealers. No one would call if it was the rats and squealers hotline, but if it's see something, say something, oh, that's you're helping out. Mm-hmm. And it is interesting territory just because we don't want to live in a world where if you know somebody's killing people or hurting people or raping people or causing general harm, you want that to go on. But at the same time, I think there's a general cynicism about the police and the government that resonates. And it is really interesting to think, you know, I think it's outdated to the code of like not snitching, just because we've had terrorist attacks and we've had all these systematic oppression of women and this person and that person, whether it's the Me Too movement or human trafficking, whatever, where it's like, if you hear something about that, you're going to feel, you might be a little scared, but you're going to be compelled to say something.
Right, one hopes.
But at the same time, I see where that stems from, and he was thrown in jail for talking.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a guy who was oppressed by the police that still 40 years later feels that.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like when I talk about Chappelle getting over it, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon if Carlin's any indication.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a solid comparison. Okay, so let's talk about why listen to the album that you picked. We've talked about takeoffs and put-ons enough to say, hey, this is Carlin kind of breaking out of his shell. Great. Let's listen to why listen to Carlin's last release post.
I don't think this was his last. Well, it technically is, but
yeah.
he recorded it way before
Right.
some of his stuff came out. But why listen to it?
Mm-hmm.
Just as a interesting retrospect, think of it like think of it as if somebody in like August 2016 was talking about Trump colluding with Russia.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Think about it as if like Patton Oswalt was on stage talking about like in-depth stuff, like Easter egg type stuff about Trump colluding with Russia and the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
In a very controversial way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just interesting to hear, like, people in 2001 were not talking about Osama bin Laden.
No.
And it's just weird to hear him referenced in a comedy bit from right before his tour de force, if you will. Coming from the perspective of the terrorist world. This is Osama bin Laden's Live from the Sunset Strip.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's as if it was being referenced a year before it was in the making.
Yeah. You know, legitimately, it's rare that you can say a comedy album is ahead of its time, but this is one that didn't get to be released until after, and it proves that somebody legit can be. It's interesting.
Right. He's talking about terrorism on planes and police being anti-citizen. You know, it's all prescient and interesting to hear. I mean, it's not gut busting. I'll say that there are laughs, but it's more interesting to hear, and it's very articulate and funny to think that's what was going on in comedy then. When you think about stand-up in the early 2000s, I mean, Chris Rock and Seinfeld. Really, what else was there?
Right.
That was relevant, at least. You know, like Def Comedy Jam.
Right.
Which is the complete opposite of what this Carlin album is. And I'm hard pressed to even come up with any other examples. Dane Cook, maybe. But he didn't really hit until 4 or 5 years after that.
Right.
Mitch Hedberg, maybe.
Sure.
But again, all this stuff, the complete opposite of all that.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, this is going to come out in a few weeks, like I said. Where can people find you on Twitter, etc., website, and what do you have, if anything, to promote?
At sandydanto.com. SANDY, or at Sandy Danto for Twitter and Instagram. SANDYDANTO. SandyDanto.com is my website. I'm going to be coming out with a podcast this spring called Rad Dad Pod. My wife is pregnant.
Congrats.
Thank you. And
I just said congrats. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't say
No,
that.
it's okay.
Gross.
It's okay.
Gross.
It's the thought that counts,
Sure.
which I'm mostly against
Uh-huh.
because it just encourages such mediocrity. It's like, oh, you screwed up royally, but you had good intentions. No, let's not encourage that. But she's due in July, and I have a friend who has a 1-year-old who's going to be my mentor into fatherhood as a comedian and
God.
like how to become a dad and maintain your lifestyle and your career and do it all without losing your sense of self.
I love it. That's great.
Thank you.
I will listen to that podcast.
Awesome.
I think that's about it. The only thing for me is just go to StolenDress.com, go to bit.ly/comedy albums, and that'll get you to Celery Sound Records, my tiny independent sketch comedy record label, and you can check that out. That's about it. Sandy, again, thank you so much for doing the show, and thank you guys for listening. And as always, have a good thing. Comedy on Vinyl is a production of StolenDress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Warden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klamm. Our theme song was composed and performed by Richard Levinson. Please visit StolenDress.com to listen to our other podcasts, read our blogs, read our tweets, watch our videos, and read our books. Please subscribe on iTunes, and if you like us, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. You can find us on Facebook.com/ComedyOnVinyl, Twitter @ComedyOnVinyl, and find everything else at ComedyOnVinyl.com. A major portion of Comedy on Vinyl has been underwritten by Stand Up Records. Please visit StandUpRecords.com for all your comedy needs and tune into the new Stand Up channel available on the Roku, where you can also find select episodes of this podcast.